I really don't think I could have predicted the success of a show like I Think You Should Leave.
The friends! The friendship in a tradition, baby, in a tradition!
In fact, it took me a while to get into the show at first, but now there are lines from it that'll probably never stop popping into my head.
It's simply too good.
Why I'm confused about the success of I Think You Should Leave is that usually these kinds of shows, absurd or surreal comedies like The Eric Andre Show,
I'm going to heaven.
Toast of London,
Hi Stephen, this is Clem Fandango, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango.
The Mighty Boosh have very niche and very enthusiastic audiences, but less mainstream success. But I Think You Should Leave seems to be a mainstream success. But why does it work? Well, first of all, absurdity goes with humor. It's an inherently good fit. It's easy to find humor in surprises, misdirection, and bizarre moments, which are definitely achievable when creating absurd or surreal situations. And as long as you can strike a balance between reality and surreality, you can still tickle the funny bone of most people.
I guess he did. Good one.
But if you venture too far into absurdity, you lose relatability and any contact point of reality that an audience member can hold on to. It just becomes ridiculous and you lose people to, I don't get it, what's funny about this?
What is going on?
But I Think You Should Leave seems to strike a balance here. As you might be aware, the title comes from the fact that each sketch has at least one character whose inappropriate behavior should warrant them leaving the scene.
Meredith, you never told me your old grandpa used to be a huge piece of shit.
There's also usually at least one normal character, traditionally referred to as a straight man, who's typically used to contrast the bizarreness of the goofball or weird character, or to be the voice of reason for the audience.
Could you not call my dad a piece of shit?
This is like a fundamental basis for a lot of comedy because watching bizarre characters interact with normal people is funny and often relatable.
What?
The Eric Andre Show, on the other hand, sometimes spirals into completely absurd ridiculousness, and Toast of London kind of more so creates a bizarre world where there aren't many characters playing it straight. So both shows can feel very divorced from reality. Now, of course, the internet has meant that unusual humor has been more widespread and accepted.
No off-topic questions, because I don't want to. No, permission denied. That's an off-topic question. Next. You have been stopped.
But you still lose a whole load of people that need a normal character to hold on to reflect their perspective in these bizarre scenes. Maybe this is why we like this show. It's weird and sometimes confusing, but for the most part you can follow it enough to still find it funny. But I would take it a step further and say that the absurd behavior of the goofball or weird character in some sketches is actually often made relatable. Sure, in some cases we still identify with the straight character like we would in a lot of other comedies, because the goofball character gives you little to relate to.
Let me take a video of you saying that you're going to kill the president. What?
But there are also some examples that feel almost cathartic in what they reveal, like the Darmine Doggy Door sketch. Why is that so hard to say?
The Darmine Doggy Door.
There's humor in the ridiculousness of the situation and his reactions and the typical aspects you might laugh at, but then there's these little doors, no pun intended, into deeper issues. Like he admits how his wife getting flipped by a swing dancer affected his sleep.
Because I've barely been sleeping since my wife got flipped upside down by a swing dancer at a wedding.
He just reveals this deep insecurity and vulnerability in an emotional state that you usually wouldn't expect someone to do that in, and moves on.
He must have flipped my wife 8 times!
And it clearly reveals that he has this jealousy and insecurity, and it's to the point where it's ruining his sleep, and he's almost definitely not communicating this with anyone. There's so much reality and pain and detail packed into this, and it's just brushed over, which I think is hilarious. Plus now every time I have an issue with something, my brain automatically plays back.
And it really bothered me.
The same sketch also has the best example of this cathartic release thing, which is the realization he makes when he thinks he's gonna die.
When you think you're gonna get eaten and your first thought is, great, I don't have to go to work tomorrow. You're relieved you don't have to go to work because you thought you were going to get eaten?
And yeah, you enjoy how over the top his reaction is, and again, the context of how ridiculous this situation is, but what really makes some of these sketches stay with me sometimes is the fact that they're actually pressing on the nerve of some very uncomfortable realities that we experience.
What the fuck is this world?
I remember coming home from an office job and almost cutting my finger on a chopping board and realizing that the excitement of almost severing a digit made me feel alive again. Being in the day in, day out of that job had robbed me of my excitement for life itself.
That was the most consequential day of my life because now I know I don't like my work.
So when you hear someone screaming these statements of feelings you can somehow connect with, it feels cathartic. Like, I know this situation is obviously absurd, but what he's saying, I feel that too. I'm screaming that on the inside.
What have they done to us? What did they do to us?
And this is a universal experience of good comedy. It's like when Larry voices some really specific opinion you agree with on Curb.
As our gift to you is going to sing a special song. So let's have a nice round of applause for
That's a gift? Are you kidding?
Sammy is going to sing. Let's hear it for Sammy.
How is that a gift?
It's funny, but it's also getting through to like another part of you. I mean, that Darmine Doggy Door
Baked in a buttery flavored crust.
the sketch bit did the rounds all over the internet. One little realization of a character in a comedy sketch manages to capture collective cultural rage against corporate work life. With this kind of absurd comedy, you can simultaneously escape reality and see it from another perspective. Comedy like this, when done right, has the ability to access stupid insecurities or difficult realities in a way that they become apparent to you. You can feel like, okay, I'm not that weird, other people feel this way too, and you can process all of this within the safe confines of a humorous sketch. It makes these difficult realizations more approachable than if you were to hear it in another context. Like if a colleague in person told you they thought they were going to die and that they were relieved they wouldn't have to go to work, you might not let that information in the same way, or you'd get distracted trying to make sure they don't take their last trip to the roof of the building.
Hey, we got a jumper on the building.
And this is something that became more apparent in season 2. It felt colder in part because they didn't shy away from some of those heavier topics, like the loneliness of the guy that's making those comments on the ghost tour. You laughed at his ridiculous statements.
Big fat load of cum then.
And him getting kicked out of the tour, but when he gets picked up by his mom, who asks if he made any friends, you realize he's just socially inept and trying to connect with people, but it's not working.
Hi, Mom.
Make any friends?
Not really.
And wanting to connect with people is so fundamental that you can't help but sympathize with him. And I mean, I didn't like this at first, you know. I felt these are comedy sketches, they're supposed to be fun. And instead it was ending on this heavy note. But again, they grew on me, and now they're one of my favorite aspects of the show. It's not just a straight up comedy sketch show. They'll occasionally challenge you emotionally. But at the same time, it's counterbalanced with some sketches that are just really wholesome. Like the one with the guy who makes the joke about his wife and then regrets it when he remembers like everything she's done for him.
Oh no, I wish I hadn't have said that. I love my wife. She helped me when I freaked out about Jamie Taco.
Jamie Taco is such a good name. And that he doesn't want to make stupid jokes with the guys about her like that.
Man, we're all just joking around.
Yeah, come on.
So you have some of these kind of sweet moments and bits that another show might choose to counter with cynicism to get a laugh or something, but this show just decides to ride with it. Now maybe you don't feel any of this and you think it's just a sketch comedy show, fucking relax the cax.
You yourself admitted yourself that you suck.
And I think it's more than that. Obviously, the show gets the fundamentals right as well. You have fantastic comedic performers and great writing, both in the dialogue and the situations themselves. I mean, it's so quotable.
I think it's a good idea, and I'm standby.
But it's the fact that the show ventures slightly away from what a sketch comedy show would typically be that makes it remarkable, I would say. Anyway, big recommendation for Toast of London and the Eric Andre Show if you want to watch more absurd shit. But other than that, why do you love I Think You Should Leave? And what are your favorite quotes?
I don't know what my favorite is.
Just bombard us with them.
Oh, God, there's like tons I can think of that just blow me away.
But that's all for now. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.